All right. About guy, everyone. This is Professor Ahmed Rahh. We want to welcome you to the to the Conscious Corner that is produced by the CN Community Education Network, a program created by Rashki Maskani. He provided us this space, and we want to thank him for his hard work in keeping it up and keeping it going. Today we have a distinguished guest, but I'm Professor Ahmed Rahh, Professor Emeritus of African Studies from Cal State University of Long Beach, where I taught for 34 years, along with the co-host of the mighty historian and educator administrator, Brother Joe Hembrick, who was one of the most powerful teachers at Linwood Unified and administrators and coach at Linwood Unified School District and Compton Unified School District. Homegrown, grew up in Compton, graduated from Compton High, went on and got education and credentials and moved on up the ladder from teacher to administrator. And then we welcome his wealth of knowledge through his historical research, which he says he learned from SOM Bookstore and other libraries in the community. We also want to welcome Brother Machinda, straight out of Louisiana, where things are always happening in the Deep South. And this brother is there providing information and education to young people and guidance. And he has a long history of being a guidance counselor and transformative person for young people. Our guest tonight is one of my best friends, family friend, and at the same time, one of the hardest working brothers that you could ever meet as far as working with brothers that were incarcerated and young people that's in gangs. And at the same time, one of the most heartfelt and committed Muslim that do their Jummah prayer every Friday, him and Brother Abdullah. And he traveled all around the world implementing the program. His program now is guns down and gloves up, or gloves up and guns down. And he's been all over the country along with his agency, which he's going to talk about. And at the same time, discuss the reality of that we have to face as Black people. This brother has a reputation, and not just reputation, is well known throughout the Compton community and the nation. He served as a personal security for many celebrities, from the Pointer Sisters to major boxing personalities and other actors and things of this nature. And he's good at what he do. And I really appreciated the rites of passage that he put on for his son, who attended Centennial High School along with where Joe Hembrick was. So without further delay, we're going to let Brother Kinsey discuss what he means by gloves up, guns down, and what they've been doing, and other topics that he thinks is very applicable and meaningful to Black people. As he said, they rip off our programs all the time. So without further delay, my friend, and at the same time, one of the most knowledgeable street brothers you would ever meet, and that is Brother Ayatollah Muhammad, when he come on and discuss. And then he's going to discuss some things at our platform, then give us a chance to ask questions. So go ahead, Brother Ayatollah.
Thank you very much, Professor Warren, for that. I don't even think I'll be able to live up to the accolades you just gave me, but none of that would have not been for leaders like yourself showing us in the 60s and the 70s how to formulate and be productive and have a great foundation. And in the midst of some time, we lost foundation. As I have to say this, and I'm wherever I go, I have to explain that I'm unapologetically Black. And I deal with Blacks in America. What Mexicans do is Mexicans can do. What Chinese do, Chinese do. What Black America, we have to generate ourselves and go back to the job and the work of saving our Black children. And this is what we were talking about early, the programs that we design, everybody profits from them but us. So we have a group called Credible Messengers, and we started off with 4 of us in 2015, and it's over 250 credible messengers out of DC right now, and most of us done prison time, 20, 25 years. Now that don't make you a pseudo-intellectual, but it gives you a foundation of what people shouldn't do. So we go around and we try to explain the significance of what we have to do to enlighten ourselves and to create a new system of economical growth and closing the wealth gap for Black America. So with our gloves up and guns down, we go through states. Ruben is out of Orlando, Florida. He's a mixed martial arts expert, boxing expert, and he's incorporated gloves up, guns down. And we go and speak to different elements and explain the prospect of being able to dispute and have disputes without a tragic end. So that's what our mission is. But then more deeply than that, we try to express, we have in Black America, we have such a gap in a financial understanding. We hear a lot of times people talking about financial literacy. We don't understand financial fundamentals. And most kids we go to from the 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th grade, I used to go on the Scared Straight platform about I've been to prison, and I don't nobody really care whether I've been to prison. What I did 25, 30 years ago has nothing to do with youngsters today. They don't even see it. You know what I'm saying? But what I do today, I asked when I'm introduced, I asked young people, how many of y'all, when you grow up, you want to be a crackhead? Don't too many people want to raise their hands. How many people want to be homeless and live in a tent? And those people that are doing that now, they didn't prospect that in their lifetime when they were young. Everybody had aspirations. But something happened that they didn't have a solid foundation, and they went off a cliff. You feel? So I found out that most of our children between the age of 15 and 25 do not have an understanding of basic living financial norms. How to pay rent, what you have to do to pay rent, what do you have to do to put down on a condo, what is a lease agreement, what do you have to do to buy a home. Everybody talks about it, but nobody knows the fundamentals of that, you know? So I try to close that gap to get financial literacy and get a financial fundamentals so you can get a broader understanding at a young age what you really look into. Most kids will tell you, well, I think all I need is $2,000 a month. $2,000 is a lot of money to them, but when they find out that the average rent is $2,500 a month, paying a car note, paying this, they never seen that type of thing, you know? So that's what we go through. Those are some of the elements that we do.
So when you are speaking to the various age groups, you've traveled it. You just mentioned before we came on, how you and the credible messengers have traveled. What were some of the challenges in the travel that you ran into with young people? that y'all spoke to?
The biggest challenge you run into with young people is that right now we're in an age of youngsters that live with entitlement. And they have a right in one sense because we didn't leave them anything as Blacks. You know, I grew up with Team Post, with the Compton Show, with all the parks and the recreations, going to school, and they had, you know, wood shop, auto shop. They had all the shops to shop to shop. Now these young kids have nothing. And we haven't left them anything, so they have a false illusion of things that's supposed to be for them that they just don't have. So their sense of entitlement, like, you know, you old, you did this, so we're going to make it on our own, because they have no real support of their elders. Professor Ross, we're the only race of people, Black people, our race, we're the only race that the elders criticize children. Mexicans don't do it openly, you know. So we have such a gap between elders and children now.
Do you think that children need to be criticized?
No, because if you criticize a child, you have to criticize yourself, because they couldn't do nothing that you didn't allow them to do.
Okay. But Mashinda, you have any questions? But before we go, what else? How did the trips go? And you was in Virginia, Miami, different places.
When we got to New York, well, first one of our biggest accomplishments was in New York City. The Puerto Rican community had Hector Camacho. He had passed, and they dedicated the Bronx, not the Bronx, Spanish Harlem, to Hector Camacho, and made it Hector Camacho Way. And when we came in and addressed the Puerto Rican community, they embraced it, like, because they're trying to save their lives, you know? And they took that, and because Hector Camacho was a boxing legend, but we brought where mixed martial arts and boxing was combined, and how you can use mixed martial, you take mixed martial arts, and people say mixed martial arts is not boxing, but in boxing, every time two opponents, they wrap up or they grab each other, that's grappling, that's martial arts. So everybody has an instinct to grapple. So when you start showing people what the natural instinct is, just like with our children, the natural instinct is their survival. And they go into a mode, and before you know it, because we as our older generation, we become so defensive. We get on the defensive of what you shouldn't do. I don't tell kids what they shouldn't do or what they should do. It's not my job, because I didn't make that big a deal of my life either until I didn't wake up actually till I was 50. You dig? I thought, what I could do would be forever. So when you understand where it's coming from, and we made an impact in North Carolina, Miss Barbara Gaston, she's running for Congress, a Black woman running for Congress. And she found out about us, and we went into her district. And when we brought out different gang members, and we showed her the elements of an untold voter registration group. All these kids that are in gangs aren't on parole or aren't on probation. They just don't have the intellect to vote.
No, answer me a question. When we was coming up, my age, a little bit with Rashiki and Joe and Brother Machine, fighting, you went from the shoulders, to settle dispute, and then it seemed to evolve into shooting, and the games were more the social things, giving parties and dances, wearing jackets and things of this nature, and trying to avoid violence. And then they say organized crime came in. And many of the gangs got into drug dealing. And that's when all the shootings started. And other forms of hustling that other organized criminals from the prisons and from white collar people that exploited car insurance schemes and all those type of things in accident. Created that avenue where you had to, you evolved in the gun. How do you deal with that? Like we fought toe to toe. We used to go in the park and say, let's just box for hit each other in the chest. But now, it's about shooting each other in the chest. But how do you see the transformation?
But Professor Rahh,
Yeah.
you got to understand, when we grew up and fighting each other, we believed that a rabbit laid eggs and the good tooth fairy, and we had Bugs Bunny, and the only thing we seen was the rifleman shoot somebody in the arm. We wasn't looking at mass murder. It was a different time. You looking at 3-year-olds right now playing Call to Duty. Santa, we're breeding murderers right now under your nose. Black women and black men are allowing their children to be babysitted with subliminal seduction. I walked in the house one day, my daughter's little son, he was playing San Andreas Fault, the card, and he was like 4 years old, right? And when I see him, he's sitting there, he's running over people in a car. He's 4 years old now. He's running over people. He's wrecking the car and jumping out, getting in another car. I sit and watched him for about 15 minutes. And I said, Achilles, he's, oh, granddaddy, you don't know. This is how you play the game. Now, in his mind at 4 years old, if he think it's all right to run into somebody and to jump in another car, what do you think he'll be driving like at 16? I grew up, when we grew up, Professor Rahh, killers were breeded, right? It just didn't. It was we started off with magnifying glass, burning up red ants, right? Then we went from red ants, we had slingshots, made a slingshot out of a clothes hanger and 2 rubber bands, and we started shooting chichi birds, the little bitty birds, right? Then we used to go to the end of the canal behind Walton, and we used to have bats. And when the rabbits would jump out the rabbit hole, we'd hit them and knock them upside the head, right? And we went on from there. We went to Woody Sporting Good one day, and we stole all their BB guns and their CO2s. And we started shooting dogs and cats. Me and my cousin Ray, before he moved over on Mona, we started off shooting. And then at 16, I shot my first brother, right? It was a breeding. Now it's subliminal. It's in the mindset. So children, we never heard that, man, we caught a murder robbery on Beauty's Only Skin Deep. Today, the ratchet music that you hear today, every day, we allowed the devil to come so much a part of us, we look just like him now. So the days are changing. When we were growing up, black men, no matter who they were, they stood up. Boy, if you don't sit down somewhere, now you got 60-year-olds trying to be 20.
Okay. I get it. Machinda, you have any questions? You there, Machinda?
I'm here. Yes, sir.
And man, it's good to hear your voice.
It's good. Welcome. Good to talk to you. Thank you, brother Ayatollah. No, I don't really have any questions. I'm just listening to you. I'm familiar. I've listened to you on YouTube many times, and appreciate you coming on the platform tonight. And I'm gonna yield the rest of my time just to listen. I mean, that's very dynamic and truth what you're saying. Again, I can talk about my experiences and things like that, but they're very synonymous with what you're talking about. But you're so eloquently putting it together. You're packaging it up really well, and I appreciate you just being able to come on the platform tonight to share this information so other listeners can hear what you have to say. I'm good.
Yes,
all right. Okay, Brother Joe.
Hey, Brother Kenzie, how you doing?
Good, Mr. Rick, how are you?
All right. You know me from the PE teacher at Centennial back in the
Yes,
day.
sir. Yes, sir.
Anyway, just want to make a comment. I totally agree with when you're talking about how we get our stuff going, and we need to stick to self instead of adding all these other groups. I was just watching today on the Black Report where Master P and Snoop Dogg got this cereal thing going, to get their cereal in the stores and whatnot. And then they alluded to allowing other, ethnic groups to follow, the Latinos, the Asians. I mean, they don't never include us, when they doing something.
Right, right.
We get something going. Here we go, opening up the door for everybody. And they don't want us in their club, so I don't know why we keep tripping on that.
Man, I'm telling you. I'm telling you.
Getting back to financial fundamentals, and I know, the kids are lacking a lot, but they don't even know how to write out a personal check if they had a checking account. They don't even know that. And I know, when I was growing up, I always hung around the old men, because the police had killed my father. So in every neighborhood I would live in, I'd be hanging out with the old men trying to get some game about life. And I got a lot from Mr. Logan. I don't know if you remember him.
Yes, sir.
On the property game and all of that. And, youngsters, they tend not to want to listen. But I found in my classroom and even in my PE classes when I was teaching, some of them get it then, not a whole lot. But as you see them later in life, they're like, man, I should have listened to you back then and blah, blah, blah. For example, I had one of my players from Centennial in 95, is supposedly in the rap game. They call him AR-15. Anyway, he played football and was a hell of a baseball player at Centennial. Kind of a standoffish kid. I kind of equate him to that brother that's playing with Memphis, the Grizzlies with the gun thing. He got it, but that ain't really him, you know what I'm saying? He's just playing a role. But anyway, he's out there in the rap game. And I used to teach my players, as soon as you think you own a woman sexually, you're due for a hearty fall. It's theirs. They're going to do what they want to do with it. Now, this brother in the rap game, and they got women coming through, at them 24/7. So he and all that. Got a nice little Latino girlfriend. She wants to leave him behind that. He can't take it, and he fools around and kills her.
Mm.
This was last week. And so he was on the run, and it happened in Torrance. And he was on the run. Now, you probably know the name. I don't know if I should say it, but hey, Avante Rose. I think you know that name.
Yeah, I know AR.
Yeah. So he did, and the police had him cornered the other day, and he killed himself before they could arrest him. But
Right.
that's gone on some BS, on some sex thing. You know what I mean? Come on. So I understand what you're dealing with. I remember when I was at Centennial, every Monday, I used to have someone fresh out of the pen to come to the cafeteria and talk to the kids after lunch, the ones that was in that life, and change some direction on them. But they would always tell me, about too much blood being shed. That was the answer I got all the time. Anyway, I ain't gonna take up no more time. Let you get to the rest of your presentation. Anyway, good seeing you again, brother.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Brother Rashaki.
Yeah, welcome again, Brother Ayatollah. I appreciate you being here. And I've always said that it's going to start with the young ones, bringing up the young ones. You got to start real early with changing the ideology that we currently live under. So I appreciate what you're doing with the kids, and we just need to do more and more and more. And when we can't do it, passing on to somebody else to do more. So
That's right.
Much appreciation for you and what you do.
Thank you, sir.
All right, Brother Muhammad. I want you to go into a lot of your history as far as what brought you to the point in which you got to the point where you trying to save youth And what is the biggest influence, and when you talk about financial literacy, how do you approach it with the young people? Go ahead.
Okay. Like I say, Professor Rahh, it ain't even about me and with my struggles and what I went through, because everybody go through something. The important thing, how we gonna get through. And right now I'm with a program, as you know, I've told you about it, the Black Unicorn Factory, and closing the wealth gap. And this is what I tell youngsters today, and how the importance of knowing what financial literacy is and how to close the wealth gap. The Black Unicorn Factory, one of my buddies, he was in Terminal Island in the federal penitentiary, Johnny Stewart, and he told me in 2012 that President Barack Obama was doing something dynamic and we have to get on board. And, being me, I don't really. So in 2012, President Barack Obama started what is called the Jobs Act, jumpstart our businesses, startups. And in this law that he did, he intended to encourage the funding and small businesses, erasing many of the country's security regulations. So what Barack Obama did, he knocked down the restrictions for what white people did to keep Black people out of stock and out of their marketing. In 1921, as we know about Black Wall Street, which never was revived, that through the concept of Wall Street, Black Wall Street, they turned over their money 19 times before it got back into white hands. So once they did this and white people saw that what they were doing with New York, they destroyed their community. They never established to become a city or because it never had a rail station. It was just a community. And so, and at the end of that, the way they took it away from Black people, God took it away from them. In 1929, it was called the Great Depression. The Great Depression, and Wall Street fell. In 1932, Franklin Delaware Roosevelt declared the New Deal. What we know about the New Deal is Social Security, but he put a shot in the arm to Wall Street, and at that time he gave them $2 billion to get back on their feet. In 1933, they came up with a thing called the SEC, Securities and Exchange Commission. The SEC put restrictions. Now you could not get into Wall Street unless you had made $250,000 a year or had a bank account of $1 million or a millionaire introduce you into the stock markets. Well, we ain't making $250,000 a year in 2023. So we know we wasn't doing it in 33, right? So all the time it's been this dilemma, this gap, the one percenters. And so in 2012, President Barack Obama says, I'm closing the wealth gap. And he knocked down a lot of the restrictions that the SEC was keeping us out. And he said, go tell my people. So in 2013, they organized Title III of the Jobs Act. And what we knew about it was called crowdfunding, right? And that's where everybody started doing GoFundMe. In 2015, in October, the SEC came up with the concept, and they started allowing Title III to become be effective. In 2016, it became effective. But when they made the law in Chapter 7, instead of what Barack Obama said, go tell my people, I wasn't there, but I understand he intended for Black people. So in Chapter 7 of the Jobs Act, it don't say go tell Black people, it says tell minorities. Anybody can be a minority. So a lot of us not hearing anything about the Jobs Act until today. You dig what I'm saying? It's just like Juneteenth. The slavery had been over 2 years before the Negroes in Texas knew anything about it. And we celebrating about being late. Why we always get it last, you know? So we coming with a new concept, and we using the concept. As I always admired, I never was able, I was in prison when you were at Cal State Long Beach, but all of my buddies that graduated was in your class. You showed them a different concept of learning. You feel what I'm saying? And one of my Jimmy tell me, he said, man, Professor Rahh used to say, ain't none of y'all less than an A. Like, that's a winning concept. You feel what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So when you give people that don't know nothing and you give them action at doing something, they say, when you knew better, you do better. You feel what I'm saying? So with the Jobs Act itself, the Black Unicorn Factory, we feel like if you had $1 million and spent $1, you wouldn't be a millionaire anymore. But if you had 1 million people working for you the way you need them to work, you would have untold riches, and it's called generational wealth. So that's why we give stock away. You know, follow me for equity, and we give you stock. So now I got a lot of youngsters. I got some kids in North and South Carolina. They got the LLCs, they got their CDLs, they didn't went on their people's property. They got land in the South. One of my boys, he done built a whole club on his mother's 3 acres of land. You know what I'm saying? And for Blacks to go in and have fun. And we're recreating. So what we messed up in the West, they're starting to pick it up in the South, and I hope it'll resonate back to us. So we're trying to close the wealth gap, and the only way you change a man's ideas and lifestyle is give him better finance. A job ain't gonna do it. It's until we fundamentally are financially astute. I mean, one time Nas told 50 cents. He told 50 Cent he had lost his hood pass and that he wasn't the same no more. He didn't got money and he didn't change. And 50 Cent replied to Nas, the only reason you don't change, you just ain't got enough money.
Yeah, your money will change.
It's supposed, and you know, lady, I was telling a lady one time in 1978, I spent $1.5 million in 9 months. By 1980, I was broke. And she was like, but money and fools soon part. So if you don't have the understanding of what you do with money, not buy cars, not buy this, put this stuff to work as a collective.
Yeah, well, we have a program called Money Literacy. The sister, she's teaching, but I want to get back to the Black Unicorn. What is that about?
The Black Unicorn Factory is a private IPO in 2016. It was called Unicorn Stock. And unicorn stock is the only stock that'll give you 1,000 times your investment. Whatever you invest in, if you invest $100, you'll get $100,000 for it. And the first unicorn stocks were Facebook is a unicorn stock, WhatsApp, Grubhub, these are all private IPOs. They say you only find 300 unicorns a year in the whole entire world. So my partner said, man, we ain't got to find unicorns. Let's make them. So he got out and got in 2020, he was released from the federal penitentiary, and he started organizing the Black Unicorn Factory. The first 16 companies, he gave us all the assets and the investments to start our own companies. And we started our own companies and investing, and we invest in people, not with money.
Okay. And that's why do you choose the name Black Unicorn?
Because there's unicorn stock, and I just like Black Wall Street, we're the Black Wall Street of the stock market, the Black Unicorn Factory. Because in all of the unicorns that they have in America, it's not one Black unicorn. So
are they on the stock market right now?
No, we're not on the stock market right now. We're going through the SEC. You know, when it comes to Blacks trying to be wealth sufficient and saying you helping Black, you have all kind of obstacles with white America. How are you doing this and giving people stocks and they don't have to pay for them? If they have to work for the stock, it's just like money. But Ronald Reagan said in 1981, bartering is just like money. The exchange for your exchange for my exchange, it's just like a financial situation. We don't have to have money in order to profit. We can just use, it's called sweat equity.
Yeah, okay. Now I'm switching a little bit. You know, from coast to coast, many of these youth are growing up in placement homes, fostered. A large percentage of them, they don't have the love of parents. They have the love of caretakers, which take care of them till they're 18. But a lot of these people are not vetted for their knowledge of financial literacy.
Right.
That are not statistically analyzed as far as their success with foster kids. You know, what did your foster kids achieve? What did your placement kids achieve? It's like one of the biggest public housing for young Black people is the jail and prison. Public housing. But they don't train them. I mean, some go into law libraries, some do learn some skills, you know, in prisons that offer them. But for the majority, it's about surviving in there and things of this nature. And so my point to you is that with all the social distractions and pitfalls that young people fall into, from the drug dealing to homelessness to alcoholism, and you know, how do you see the gloves up, guns down, communicating to that group of people?
That goes back to the first point we were talking about, our children and not having a financial foundation. And you know, our children have been so miseducated in matters of us not giving or not having, unable to have the tools for a foundation for financial freedom. Right. So like you said, most kids believe either they gonna grow up and get Section 8 or get food stamps forever. But this is the concept that they have. They never have, nobody's has ever direct them how to be independent, or I'm going to emancipate myself and the county is going to take care of me for the first 25 years. And you become so complacent with these things that put you. So now we have to reignite or reorganize the thought pattern. So with gloves up and guns down, that's some of the process that we deal with. We have to deal with a new form of education. We can't use the same old form, but most of the educators right now are still using the same prehistoric parts of teaching that they were taught when they were 8 years old. This is a whole different dynamic. I remember when I was locked up, they needed do affirmative action. They needed Blacks over at Laverne College in 1969, right? So they took 100 of us over there from YTS and took us over to Claremont College. It's a Christian college. I mean, we thugs, we come in, you know, my whole life was a roll of Red Devils, a 22, and 2 screwdrivers. That's the only education I needed. You dig what I'm saying? I didn't know how to count past a matchbox of weed or a kilo of marijuana. So we got over there and in our calculus and algebra class, the professor over there, white dude, Professor Murphy, he got us together and he showed us another rudiment of learning algebra. And you know how he taught us that? He taught us through music. Since Negroes like music so much, time and space is all mathematic. Through what the half note, the whole note, we learned about how to make moves in algebra through music. You dig what I'm saying? So I took a class one time of a deviant youth class, and they said they couldn't pass because they couldn't pass the elementary, the basic part of algebra. And when you get to a car thief, if you tell a car thief you got 4 tires is A, and you got C, B is a motor, what is C? He gonna tell you it's a car, right? So if you deal with a dope dealer selling weed, you can do the same mathematical equations right now. I don't know one rap record. I cannot remember one rap record. It's 16 bars to each rap tune. So if educators would start using mathematical equations, you'd be surprised as how you could get an attention of these kids, because the regular form of education is not where they are.
Okay, but you know what? See, when I grew up in Watts, Compton, straight street. My parents came from Louisiana, and I was born in Oakland but raised in Watson, Compton. And in South Central, South LA. My parents never asked me did I do my homework. I was in school. Their whole thing was get a job.
Mm-hmm.
You're gonna have to, you go to school so you can get a job. Not invest, not buy property. A lot of that knowledge came from people who were successful that you may luckily get mentored by or give you some game. Like Joe was saying, Mr. Logan, he gave him some game. My question is that we're still in that mentality. And how do we get young people to see that finances is a tool and a weapon for them to build their life and protect their life? I mean, if half these kids had half the money they spend on electronics and save, we used to say if all the money you spent playing Pac-Man at the arcade, if you'd have saved it, you'd be able to buy an old car, fix it up, sell it.
Right. Well, like you say, Professor Rahh, you grew up in a time where, like you say, now I didn't grow up like that. My mother graduated from Jackson State University. My father was in the Navy. I had every element. I went to Catholic school. I've been on 921 West Elm Street all my life. The first time I ever spent the night away from home was juvenile hall. You feel what I'm saying? But I came up on the same tragedy because now I lived entitlement before they had entitlement. These kids right now, they'll pay man, we never thought that if you went to high school, when I was going to high school and you didn't have a car, you was a buster. You know what I'm saying? Everybody got money enough. We saved money. Now they just spend it. They want my little 10-year-old son just sent me a picture of some tennis shoes that he wants, right? Dude ain't got a job. He ain't got a bus fare. This man wants some $300 tennis shoes, right? I didn't get $300 from my parents. And I didn't start getting $300 until I started robbing.
Yeah, I heard that, brother.
So we're under a different time frame, and it's all you get now is money and spending. You were raised to save money and to put stuff together, because right now in Compton we don't have one black Miss Alma's Cafe, and it's not open most of the time. We grew up with black businesses, black men going to work every day. Todd Shipyard to Douglas Aircraft. Now you see grown men hanging in front of liquor store, in front of gas stations and bumming. You didn't have that kind of thing when you was growing up. Everybody had a hustle.
Yeah, we didn't have no homelessness that open. Yeah. Mashinda, you have any other question? You there, Mashinda?
Yeah, no questions.
Okay. What about you, Big Joe?
No questions. I just like this is what I used to do when I was teaching. I had a philosophy that was called no LBS. and I was trying to teach the kids at Centennial. Those of you that went there know that field over there east of the tennis courts on the home side of the football stadium was just weeds. You know, I don't know how large. It was a pretty good lot. But I had my kids, cleared, and we started planting food. And I was teaching them about property ownership, about if you could take, whatever house you could get from maybe four of them, living together, working a couple of jobs and living in the same domain. And after a couple of years, from the money that they save, they could probably go out and get a fixer-upper crib,
Mhm.
uh, you get from $10,000 to $15,000 in equity every year. I don't care how raggedy the house is. If you fix it up, you get this equity, borrow on the equity, and buy something else and do the same thing. And
That's right.
maybe one person learned roofing, one learned cement, one learned electrical, like that. And then when you got the property, you wouldn't have to pay people to do these things that you have to have done in order to get the stuff livable and rented. So those are things I try to push to the kids. And every blue moon I run across one. Hey, Miss Hemrick, I got me a house. I got me a house. I say, hey, way to go. Just let that equity build. Because I tell them if you're renting, it's like throwing your money in a river. You're just going down the river. But if you're buying something, the money that you're paying into it, you can go back and get that money, draw out a few $1,000s as the years go by, and this equity builds up. So, it was a task. Some got it, some didn't, just like with everything else. But that's a way to kind of get some of them, to see the light.
That's
And
right.
definitely agree with you. Got to teach a new way, and maybe they'll listen to what you got to say. So anyway, I pass the baton to Rahh. It's his time now. Me and Rod and did ours in the schoolhouse. All right, brother.
Yeah, but it's a struggle from the womb to the tomb, as we used to say. But before I get to Rahh, one of the persons that opened my eyes, Big Captain Shaheed Muhammad, and we was doing a lot of economic development things and activities. And he taught me so much about finance.
Yes,
And
sir.
as you know, Brother Muhammad, he generated money. He know how to generate money. I don't know how he did it, but he would always have money. And he said, don't buy no big car, expensive car, unless you got at least 50,000 in the bank.
That's right.
He said you don't do that. Say, man, just work until you get 50. He said, buy no house unless you got big money in the bank. I don't think I'd have my house today if it wasn't for Big Cap. You understand? Because I wouldn't even think about buying it. My first house I bought it for my mama. You understand? I mean, moved her out of the shack that we grew up in. I would never think about my future. My future is, like you said, was right now. And chasing women and partying and hanging out with celebrities and all that, the fast life. You understand? I mean, but Big Cap taught me fiscalness and
Yes,
taught
sir.
me hygiene, the importance of being clean and, his house, you have to take your shoes off when you get to
That's
Big
right.
Cap, and he and I guess he got it from the nation. I don't know. He came out of Chicago, but I'm a professor. Big Cap didn't have the education I had, but I was miseducated because
Right.
they taught even teachers to teach our kids just things that is not about generational wealth, not about investment. Brother Hendrick is probably one of the rare teachers that taught them about personal economics. They taught them about economics, academic economics. To pass a test, but not to pass through life.
Mhm.
he said. So I just learn from people. And the next thing is,
But then, Professor Rahh, as you saying, you had a special dynamics in your life. Cap was a builder of men. You know, he saved my life. And man, it ain't no telling what kind of dude I'd have been if he had the patience. And in the arena of showing blacks how to be just like Huey Newton said when they gave him his PhD, now, no matter what you call me, you got to call me Dr. Nigga, right? So it's to have a title to be proud of that you're able to wear. You showed people when it wasn't popular how to get into arena and not kiss the ring. You and Maulana Ron Karanga set up precedents in schools that ain't many of them had on this West Coast. So the same way Cap put us through life, you put a lot of brothers through life in college. Man, me and my partner Jimmy, man, we was in YA and this and this and that. That man wouldn't have never went to college had he not been in your class. He would have never got a degree had he not been in Professor Rah's class. Jesse Phillips' sister Margaret, she would have never got a degree had it not been for you. So everybody has their specialties. It's how you use them. You feel what I'm saying? And you've been standing on the platform all your life for the Black experience. Everybody don't get it. Man, I remember one time Ronald Exum Styles on Compton Boulevard, right? Mr. Exum had the first Black store on Compton Boulevard at that time. And that man told me one day, we was doing some stuff and I'm in and out of Jew. And he said, Marvin, you better learn you a trade. Man, quit running around here and doing this and doing that. Because if you ain't made it by you 40, you need to shoot yourself in the head. And I couldn't imagine that at 15, right? What is this nigga talking about? Whoop the wham, right? And then at 40, when I saw myself in prison, Professor Rahh, it came to me what he was saying, because you got dudes 40, 50, 60 years old. They can't be on the yard no more. In San Quentin, they call it Citizens Row. West Block is for all the old men. In Chino, it's Elm Hall. And these are all the old lifers. You dig what I'm saying? They can't get away and get out of stabs. What's the use in coming back to the street after 40 and 50 years in prison, 60, 70 years old? You're no good for economy. So I went and I started thinking about it. And my sister got killed in 1982. And when my sister got killed, the guy that killed her, his brother, was in a prison with me, right? And I was getting ready to do this guy, and one of the brothers I was in the nation with, he had me do Ramadan, and I read in the Quran, and the Quran says that a woman suckles a baby for 36 months, and a man achieves manhood at age 40. Now, brother, it just told me that in 1967, that if you ain't made it by the time you're 40, you need to shoot yourself in the head. Because at 40, the same thing you do, you'll be doing the rest of your life.
Wow.
So our education, the things that we like Brother Hendricks said, and Brother Rasadidi said, it's some things you tell a kid, he may not get it today, but you planted the seed. And one day that light will come on. So it's all your job is to tell them. You feel what I'm saying? That you just tell them, because whether I do it or not, it's on me. You know, so you've done as much good as Cap, you know, and it's because you and him was in the same running, y'all did the same thing and held the same flag, Black excellence.
Yeah, that's good, brother. Rasiki?
Yeah, since we giving testimonies, I remember Brother Machinda and I just had a conversation a couple of days ago, and I was telling him that, you know, this teachings that we get coming up as a young person, it's so pertinent, and it kind of sticks with you. And I was telling Brother Machinda that, you know, when I was in Rah's classes and I learned some things back then, and he was telling me some things that I just, you know, I couldn't really, like you were saying, planting the seed. He planted the seed, but it didn't really ferment until like 10, 15 years later. You know, it's really tough. It's very important that the kids get reached early, because once you get that bullhead, and man, and I'm blessed to be in the position I'm in today, because I was able to take that information and run with it, and it helped me throughout my life. But it took some years for it to sink in. I tell you, it's really tough, really tough. That's why we have to reach these young people as soon as we can. But yeah, excellent information, Brother Ayatollah. I just you know, give it up to you, and you know, everybody on here that do what they do. You know, we've been fortunate to learn, so we have to share it.
That's right.
So,
All right.
thanks and praise.
Yeah, brother, I told him we're going to close it on out. Rashiki, who you got next Wednesday?
Got Brother Greg Lacey. He's a podcast host, and the topic is Mo Better Blues.
Mo Better Blues.
Yeah, so it should be interesting. He gave me some information about some of the things we're going to talk about, so it should be really interesting.
Okay.
And one thing I want to mention, Roz, it's been 2 years since you've been on, since you and Hembry. March, no, it was May 25th is when you started. So you've done 2 years on the podcast Conscious Corner. That's excellent. And hopefully we could do another 40. So congratulations on that accomplishment, because all the information and the guests that we get is just very good. You know, I get told all the time by the people who actually listen that it's a real good platform, and I appreciate it. Keep up the great work, you and Hembry, and Brother Ayatollah, Brother Machinda.
Yes, sir.
So we got Greg Lacey coming on Wednesday.
Greg Lacey, okay. I'm still going to try to get Stop Violence and Peace to Peace, Brother Khalid Shaw, or either somebody else, because his brother, Big Shaw, as we used to call him, they put in a lot of work. And I want to thank Brother Ayatollah for coming on, sharing his wealth of knowledge, and he always has an open invitation. Whenever he run across some knowledge he want to share, and we gotta get a picture of you. Do we have a picture of him, Rashiki?